My name's Paul Vick, and I paint, collect, and make masks. I'm pretty much known as the clown guy. Most of the time, it's the Slipknot replicas. There's like a really crazy big market for people who want Slipknot replica masks at the quality that they would get them made at, and since there isn't like a place to get them, it's all been like freelance artists like making them. At the time, there was no one making a specific one that I wanted. I just started, was like, well, how can I get that? And this is the hardest part for a lot of people, is like how much latex to mix in with your paint. Because if you don't, it's just gonna crack off and just like fall apart and look like this thing. Or someone didn't paint it good, and I tried to like clean it off and you just can't. My first memory of a horror movie was actually Scream, and we were in the back of like my dad's cargo van. There was no seats, no seat belts or whatever. We were just laying in the back, and we had like a little TV VCR, and we were on vacation with like the two neighbor kids, and we had the VHS Scream, and they put it in, and I just remember being absolutely terrified and hiding under the blanket, that first scene. And I don't remember anything past that, but I just remembered like just being totally traumatized by that first scene. And then coincidentally, when we got home from vacation, there was like a search in the neighborhood, and there was like helicopters and I said, "Oh, I'm dead." You know, I didn't really get into anything until I your first sleepover at a friend's house, and he was listening to ICP, and I heard "Fuck the World" for the first time. I was like, oh no, this is possible? You could say this? And then when we finally got to go buy those CDs, I talked my mom and grandma into going to buy them for me. We went to Walmart and got the edited versions. So like this is what I mean by sheltered, you know what I mean? Really what it comes down to is after high school, I didn't want to work. No one wants to work a real job. I had only worked at a video store, and I just don't like talking to people for the most part. My mom had met some people who were running a haunted house at like the fair that year, and she was like, "Oh, I think my son might be into something like that." And she was like, and got their business card and shit. And like I ended up working there for 2 years, and then I had a friend who had recently had a kid, and she needed to work. I ended up kind of babysitting back and forth. I would come out. I was like, well, I'm not making enough money. She wasn't able to pay me real job money, you know. I wanted a little bit more money. And I was recently like coming out of like a different hobby. I was like really into comedy for a little bit. I had just found a bunch of new friends in this new community. It was all Death Squad podcast, and I was listening to that. And then, so I hadn't gone to shows in a long time. And then I was kind of getting out of that phase, and I went to a Mushroomhead show, and I said, oh man, why don't I have one of these? Like I saw them in their masks, and I was like, oh, there was new ones. There was these new snowman masks, which I still haven't owned one. And I was like, oh man, I need one of these. How can I get one of these? I went home and like I added everybody on Facebook that I could find that knew anything or had any masks. And then I found AJ Good, who's the House of Masks.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? AJ Good here at the House of Masks, and today's video is going to be a Slipknot mask unboxing. Finally, it's been a minute since we've done one. I know a lot of you guys have been asking for some Slipknot stuff, so I'm trying to get that back out there. Today we have a mask from my buddy Paul Vick. As you guys know, I have some of his work already. You've probably seen the videos. Super solid dude. His work is awesome. Specializes in clowns. Ooh, look at him. Like I said, he's super messy and super colorful. I fell in love with it as soon as I saw it.
I had this like shitty gas mask that a friend stole working because he had like volunteered at a like firehouse or some shit, and he had stolen it. We were like, oh, you know, a gas mask for Sid from Slipknot, you know, so cool. And I had that forever. And he had been collecting gas masks at the time, and he said, hey, I'll trade you this clown, the regular OG West German clown, for that. And I was like, oh, perfect. I've always been a huge Slipknot fan, so I was like, all right, cool. I finally am going to get a cool clown mask. After further research, the Mushroomhead masks were a little bit harder to find because those are only available through the band, so they're a little bit more expensive, which money seems to be my issue right now at the time. So I was like, all right, we're going to get away from that. So I ended up going more along the Slipknot route, and I was, like I said, I was able to get one of the clown masks right away that I liked a lot. But at the time, live, he was using a different one. It was like a similar one, but with longer hair, like this one. And I wanted that one specifically. I was like, no, not that one. I want that one. So I like tried to like style the hair and change the paint on it a little bit, but it looked like shit, and I just wasn't happy with it. And that started like this crazy obsession about getting that one right. That's like the hardest part about this for me is like I said earlier, I don't make like a ton of money. So like sometimes you have to like let shit go to get new shit.
Oh, yeah.
And that's part of the deal too. But like it's all part of the game. It's all part of like this. I kind of thought of it as like the stock exchange for a while, because like there's times to buy and there's times to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent so much money just like buying orange wigs to sew on these things. And I went to we're lucky because we have 2 awesome costume shops in Chicago, Fantasy and Chicago Costume Warehouse, and there's actually 2 locations, so technically we have 3 awesome costume shops. And I went in there, and the first one I bought was like this crazy $50 stripper wig, and it was like really expensive. I was like, this is gonna be the one. It's so expensive, it's gonna be perfect. It was too thin and looked like shit, and like I'd order different ones online, and I still wasn't happy with them. And then like I've said, I was really into like trying to get it as good as possible because like people are really into accuracy in the hobby. So I found out that these weren't even the same mask that he was wearing. He was wearing a latex copy. So I tracked down a guy who was able to make those for me. And then, like I said, I was still building up the hair. And then I had some hair. I was able to get the latex copies. I was practicing painting. I was getting it down. And then I had this guy reach out and say, I don't care really pretty much how much it costs. I want that mask. And that was like intriguing. I was like, oh, here we go. Just working with like different materials, like painting, like the hockey mask is completely different than painting a vinyl clown, which is completely different from painting a latex clown or a latex mask. And just the hands-on, like it's so much hands-on, like you can't learn it without years and years of doing it, just like almost anything pretty much. So I'm still putting in the work. I'm not exactly getting where I need to be, but it's still putting in the work towards the overall goal, I feel like. When I moved out to Illinois, I was living out here, and I made some new friends at the new school, and he's like, hey, have you heard of Slipknot? And I was like, oh, no, I haven't. And that was like Slipknot and Mudvayne time, and that MTV was big, and the music videos, and like I was immediately hooked on that. And I always thought it was ironic because I was living in Iowa, and that's where Slipknot is from. And then that's where like the love for the music and the masks pretty much come from, is like that first like decision of my want and need of what I wanted to listen to and do. You know what I'm saying? So it was pretty much like my first love, basically. The feeling of being someone else and like that little bit of cooler feeling, the hiding behind the mask, and they're like, oh man, that's so cool, and you just feel way cooler than you do without it. That's a different feeling, like walking through the crowd and everyone's like, oh, can I get a picture with you? Can I get a picture with you? It's like, you wouldn't if I wasn't wearing the mask. So that's an obvious high, like you can ride. That was at a Mushroom Head show. I was there celebrating my birthday actually, and I was wearing a pumpkin mask. There's pictures of me online at the rave. Like, I was one of the only people wearing masks, too. Because, like, back in the day, people used to wear masks more often, but now more often lately, they weren't again, and it's kind of come back more. So it's pretty cool for Mushroom Head, at least. The end game is to be making my own stuff in a studio space instead of at home with friends, either for films or just masks for just personal like use or sale, or just to be able to do this for a living, you know, not be able to worry about bills or, you know, and not have to do anything else. I want to be able to have this be my life. I really enjoy it. I found something that I was kind of good at, and people enjoy it. People like what I've done so far. That's definitely where I think I want to end up. is working with people who are better than me, learning stuff, and then, you know, just doing this, man, making masks.